Hi everyone, welcome to today's webinar, Tedious to Transformative, Turning Repetitive Documentation Work into Time Savings. This is Sheba and I'll be your co-host for tonight. Now I am delighted to introduce our speaker, Tara English Sweeney, lead technical writer at Alchemy Technology. With over 30 years of experience in communications, content management, and technical writing. She leads initiatives that integrate AI, structured authoring, and automation to enhance scalability and quality. Her work centers on extending the role of the technical writer through thoughtful automation and human-centered validation. In this session, Tara will share how targeted AI automations can streamline repetitive tasks, freeing teams to focus on higher value work. You will learn the simple 20-minute win approach to productizing AI and see how smart automations can deliver big results in documentation workflows. If you have any questions during the webinar, feel free to drop them in the Q&A box and we'll make sure to address them towards the end of the session. With that, I'll hand it over to Tara. The stage is yours.
Thank you, Sheba. Appreciate you having me here. Hello, everyone. As Sheba said, my name is Tara English Sweeney. I'm the lead technical writer at Alchemy Technology. Alchemy is a digital banking platform for U.S. banks and credit unions. And I work at the intersection of product engineering and documentation with a focus on building scalable content systems and using AI responsibly to reduce manual work while improving clarity and consistency. So I'm here today to talk about how we turned a repetitive documentation task into meaningful time savings. At Alchemy, product owners write release notes, and that means release notes compete with roadmap planning, backlog grooming, client meetings, and all the other work that product owners are actually hired to do. So today I'll walk through how we took a high friction product owner owned task and turned it into a repeatable, low effort workflow without asking product owners to become writers or AI experts. This isn't about writing skill, it's about translation and risk. So I noticed a lot of you mentioned that in the poll. Product owners are already doing a lot of invisible work when they write release notes. They're reading development tickets, deciding what customers already actually need to know. They're stripping out internal jargon and so on. None of that work is hard, but it's mentally expensive. And because it's mentally expensive, it's easy to put off. There's also real risk involved. They can have inconsistent tone, too much technical detail, not clearly explaining customer impact, or including something that later turns into confusion or support tickets. Most product owners I've worked with don't actually dislike release notes. They just don't have time to write them, especially on top of everything else they're responsible for. Imagine you're looking at dashboards, that's what we use in our work, with 5 different product teams all in separate meetings. Each team's dashboard shows outstanding work, and some of that work is release notes. So let's say each team needs to write 5 release notes. That's 25 release notes total. Each one takes conservatively about 20 minutes. So that's over 8 hours of product owner time spread across 5 people doing the work that they're most likely to push to the bottom of the list. And while that's happening, the technical writing team is waiting to review the release notes when the drafts come in, and they often come in all at once, of course, while we're working on product documentation and other items. So when I use the word transformative, I don't mean robots are writing all of our documentation. I mean that product owners are getting their time back for the work that actually requires judgment, reviewing for accuracy, validating intent, and handing off clean drafts to technical writers so that we can focus on clarity, usability, and standards. This is where I provided the real strategic value. The bridge between these two states is called productizing AI. It's moving from experimenting with AI to building reliable, repeatable workflow aids that solve very specific, very painful problems. So as I mentioned, this was already a product owner-owned task. I didn't move work to product owners. I removed the friction from the work that they were already doing. So here's what that actually looked like. Product owners read the dev ticket in Jira, they interpreted the intent, they rewrote the information for the customers, and then maybe they double checked the wording. None of this is especially difficult, but it's repetitive, it's mentally expensive, and it's easy to delay. This is why it was an ideal task for AI. We had clear input, the ticket text, a clear output, a release note in a templated format, high repetition and high cognitive load with very low creative value. So that's exactly the kind of work AI should be doing. AI is not thinking for you, but it's translating for you. So the solution wasn't just AI, it was the blueprint that I gave it. This was the most important part of the entire system. I didn't just type a simple prompt and hope for the best. I engineered detailed system instructions. That's the non-negotiable secret sauce. So those system instructions act like a template, a compiler, and a formatter all in one. They tell the AI exactly how to behave and exactly what kind of output is acceptable. There's one more critical piece here. We have high quality information in our developer tickets. So the combination of good inputs and strong system instructions is what gives us a consistent, high quality draft every single time. Product owners don't write prompts, they don't tune models, and they don't guess how something should be worded. The system already knows the required fields, the tone, the audience, and also what not to say. The product owner knows the facts, the context, and the intent. The blueprint does the draft of the writing so the product owner can focus on the product. So that's why consistency improved. Every release note follows the same structure and tone. That's why review cycles shortened. The writers aren't rewriting from scratch, they're refining. And that's why confidence increased. Product owners know the draft already meets expectations before it ever goes to a review. AI didn't replace judgment, it replaced guesswork. In this model, product owners create the draft. Technical writers ensure the quality and the usability. So the separation of responsibilities is what keeps the system both fast and safe. Everything I'll show you after this is just a variation on the same pattern. When we first rolled this out, the reaction from one of our product owners really stuck with me. They said, this is a lifesaver. What that meant wasn't just that it was faster. It was that a whole category of friction disappeared. Before this, writing release notes meant second guessing everything. Tone, wording, how much technical detail was too much, and whether the customer impact was clear enough. Even when the product owner knew the feature inside and out, translating that into release note language was where hesitation crept in. With the blueprint in place, that hesitation went away. So the real shift wasn't just speed, it was confidence. The first draft already met expectations, so they weren't starting from a blank page or wondering if they were saying the right thing. That confidence changed how the work felt. The biggest win wasn't only saving time, it was removing hesitation. And that confidence had real downstream effects. There was less second guessing because the system enforced consistency. There were fewer rewrites because technical writers were refining instead of redoing. And product owners relied less on writers for rephrasing, which freed writers up to focus on clarity, usability standards, and other high-value work. This is what it looks like when AI supports judgment instead of replacing it. Product owners stayed in control. They just didn't have to carry the cognitive load alone. Once I proved that we could safely reduce cognitive load for product owners with release notes, I realized something important. This wasn't a one-off solution, it was a repeatable pattern. So I applied the blueprint elsewhere. One example is link conversion. This wasn't about writing content, it was about removing format work. We all know the pains there. We had large volumes of links that needed to be transformed into a very specific structure. We're dealing with proprietary XML. AI handled that transformation, so humans didn't have to go through the tedious process of manually reformatting links. Again, once I had that blueprint, I applied this agent concept elsewhere to improve quality and scale knowledge. The first example is through an AI-powered review. I built a release note reviewer that acts as a first pass quality check for technical writers. Before anything gets published, the system checks for style issues, appropriate titles, and duplicate content. Again, it's not an approval gate. It's a second set of eyes that reduces risk early. These aren't replaces for human review. I cannot emphasize that enough, but they are force multipliers. The second is smart cross-referencing. We're using a model to recommend cross-references, which directly improves our customer's experience and findability. And the third is rapid knowledge synthesis. I turned a complex hours-long technical transcript for ISO 20022 into a clean, client-ready, quick reference guide in a matter of minutes. That also was reviewed, but this is transformative for client enablement. In every case, the goal was the same as with release notes: reduce cognitive load, remove friction, and let our teams focus on judgment instead of mechanics. Release notes were the starting point, but the pattern scales wherever translation work exists. I want to share one additional piece. AI is only as good as the knowledge you give it. We had a massive knowledge gap. We needed a validated glossary. So my solution was to have AI draft the entire glossary by synthesizing all of our up-to-date documentation. This foundation immediately powered tools like our internal Grammarly to enforce language consistency across the entire organization. This is using AI to create the knowledge foundation that we didn't have. The glossary grounds AI in our domain. Instead of guessing how we talk about products or features, the system references language that we've already agreed on. That grounding is what makes the output feel intentional, not generic. So, how can you get started on moving from tedious to transformative? The most important thing is this: start small and target tedium. Don't try to boil the ocean. It will make you crazy. Look for a task that takes about 20 minutes, happens frequently, and feels mentally draining rather than intellectually rewarding. That 20-minute win is where AI can make an immediate difference. The second step is to prioritize the blueprint. That system instruction is what gives you consistency, safety, and trust. Don't rush this part. The quality of your output is directly tied to how carefully you engineer those instructions. The blueprint should remove decisions, not create new ones. And finally, validate and scale. Yes, measure time saved and efficiency gains, but just as important, pay attention to how people feel using the solution. That lifesaver feedback is often what gets real buy-in and makes it possible to scale your approach further. When you focus on small wins, strong blueprints, and real feedback, AI stops being an experiment and starts becoming part of how work actually gets done. That's when you move from experimenting with AI to actually productizing it. If you take just one thing away today, let it be this: find the work that drains your energy, but not your judgment, and start there. And as you're thinking, I'll leave you with that one question. What is the first tedious 20-minute task that you are going to automate? I'd love for you to think on that.
Thank you, Tara. The session was quite insightful, and I'm sure the audience will agree with me. I hope the insights shared tonight gave everyone a clear understanding of how small targeted AI automations can transform everyday documentation into measurable efficiency and impact. To everyone who tuned in, thank you for taking your time to be here and for all your great questions and comments. And of course, if you have more questions or want to learn more about Document360, then feel free to reach out to us. Until then, we'll be back soon with another session. See you all next time. Thank you, Sarah, and thank you everyone for joining.